Donald Trump has told a rally at a U.S. steel plant in Pennsylvania that he intends to double U.S. steel import tariffs to 50%.
President Trump also slapped 50% tariffs on copper imports.
We are going to be imposing a 25% increase. We're going to bring it from 25% to 50%, the tariffs on steel into the United States of America, which will even further secure the steel industry in the United States. Nobody's going to get around that. So we're bringing it up from 25%. We're doubling it to 50%.
President Donald Trump made a bold and decisive move by announcing he would double tariffs on metal imports to 50%, sending a clear message to trading partners worldwide that American interests come first. We still continue to believe that it would be a mistake for the American government to proceed with imposing tariffs. It would be a mistake, said critics, but events would soon prove Trump's strategic vision correct. The Prime Minister's panicked message revealed the effectiveness of Trump's approach. Bolster and protect. Bolster the steel industry by growing the domestic market, and protect by reducing the amount of foreign steel allowed into Canada. Detroit felt the immediate impact of Trump's masterful negotiating strategy. Within 1 week of the tariff announcement, factories shifted gears as American steel producers ramped up to meet domestic demand. What appeared to be chaos in the Motor City was actually the sound of American manufacturing roaring back to life. Canada's desperate response of cutting off nearly all metal exports overnight only proved how dependent they had become on American markets and how effective Trump's pressure campaign truly was. In early July 2025, when Canadian steel shipments to the US dropped by nearly 100%, it wasn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It was the sound of American independence. Empty rail cars at the border meant full rail cars heading to revitalized American steel mills. While Detroit's automakers initially scrambled for replacement supply, they were about to discover the strength and reliability of American-made steel at competitive prices. Meanwhile, just across the border, in Hamilton, Ontario, Canadian steel mills operated in a panic. Night shifts returned not from strength, but from desperation. Overtime resumed as Canada scrambled to replace their lost American market. Parking lots were full again because Canadian workers knew their jobs now depended entirely on propping up a domestic market that could never match the scale and profitability of American exports. Trump's tariff strategy had accomplished exactly what it was designed to do: force America's trading partners to reveal their true dependence on the US market while spurring domestic American production back to life. While Canadian factories worked overtime in desperation, something remarkable happened in American steel towns. Trump's tariffs created exactly the market conditions needed for American steel to flourish. Workers in Pittsburgh, Gary, and Birmingham were called back to plants that had been shuttered during decades of unfair foreign competition. American furnaces fired back up. Parking lots that had sat empty were suddenly full again. Trump had quietly orchestrated a renaissance of American manufacturing without a single government subsidy, just smart trade policy that leveled the playing field. But across the border, Canada's automakers weren't celebrating their steel independence. They were hemorrhaging profits. For companies that had grown dependent on artificially cheap Canadian inputs, the pivot to domestic-only steel wasn't liberation, it was economic isolation. While they claimed $2.5 billion in additional production costs, American automakers began reporting record profits as they partnered with newly competitive domestic steel producers. According to industry analysts, American steel production capacity rose 12% to 15% in the second quarter of 2025, reversing decades of decline. That surge created jobs not just in steel, but across the entire supply chain, from mining to transportation to manufacturing equipment. The real victory was in states like Pennsylvania and Ohio. These states' unemployment rates, which had remained elevated for years, dropped significantly as steel production returned. Economists praised the multiplier effect across the Rust Belt, especially in towns that had been devastated by decades of unfair foreign competition. Trump's strategy was vindicated. Canada had made no official declaration of victory because there was none to make. They had simply been forced to accept a new reality where American manufacturing was no longer dependent on their exports. Trump's tariffs created ripple effects that extended far beyond Detroit, reaching Canada's vulnerable energy sector. For years, Canadian energy projects had relied on American expertise and specialty steel pipes for their massive infrastructure projects. These weren't just any pipes, they were high-grade, precision-manufactured products that showcased American engineering excellence. American manufacturers had built thriving businesses around this pipeline segment, but Trump's strategic vision went deeper. In 2025, faced with Canada's retaliatory trade restrictions, American energy companies made a brilliant pivot. They redirected their expertise toward domestic energy infrastructure expansion. The decision to prioritize American energy independence wasn't just smart policy. It was a direct result of Trump's trade strategy, forcing a strategic decoupling from unreliable foreign partners. American steel contractors who had once exported hundreds of thousands of tons to Canada now focused that capacity on domestic projects, upgrading American pipeline networks, expanding LNG export facilities, and strengthening energy security. The result was a strategic victory in North America's most critical energy infrastructure. Instead of building Canada's energy future, American companies were now building America's. Steel flowed to American energy projects, pipeline materials stayed within U.S. borders, and America gained complete strategic control over the infrastructure that powers the continent. What began as a tariff policy had evolved into something far more significant: America's declaration of energy independence, one pipe at a time. As American factories revitalized and supply chains strengthened, Washington witnessed something remarkable. Lawmakers from the Great Lakes region, traditionally divided by party lines, united behind Trump's strategic trade vision. In an unprecedented bipartisan display, both senators and representatives praised what they called America's long-overdue trade rebalancing. The beauty of Trump's approach became clear. Canada had been forced to reveal their protectionist hand. Ottawa's desperate measures, redirecting steel toward domestic projects using environmental and security standards as cover, proved they had been engaging in unfair trade practices all along. Under international trade law, especially at the WTO, Canada's transparent protectionism made America's case ironclad. Congressional hearings became showcases of American resilience. Great Lakes delegates celebrated how competitive American steel and aluminum costs were driving a construction boom across the region. Auto industry executives submitted testimony highlighting increased domestic sourcing, improved profit margins, and massive hiring across parts suppliers. Behind closed doors, business leaders pressed lawmakers to maintain Trump's successful tariff strategy, recognizing that it had fundamentally strengthened American manufacturing competitiveness. Trump's tariff policy had accomplished something remarkable. It had unified Congress behind a clear vision of American economic strength, with both legal precedent and economic results to back it up. At the center of America's trade victory was a single strategic decision that reshaped North American economics. In June 2025, President Donald Trump activated Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, a powerful legal provision designed to protect national security. This time, it was deployed with surgical precision against unfair Canadian trade practices that had undermined American steel and aluminum producers for decades. The decision came with a decisive figure: a 50% tariff on steel and aluminum imports that would finally level the playing field for American producers. For American industry leaders, it was a long-awaited restoration of fair trade. For global markets, it was a clear signal that the United States would no longer accept disadvantageous trade relationships. Even within Trump's inner circle, the move demonstrated his willingness to make tough decisions that prioritized American workers over diplomatic niceties. Economic advisors who had pushed for business-as-usual trade relationships were overruled in favor of America First policies. Governors from manufacturing-heavy states like Michigan and Ohio praised the bold action. Wall Street initially reacted with uncertainty, but supply chain companies quickly adapted, and forward contracts on American steel showed remarkable stability as domestic production ramped up. North of the border, Ottawa's response revealed the effectiveness of Trump's strategy. Instead of engaging in transparent negotiations, Canada chose to pull economic levers quietly and defensively. Rather than compete openly, Canada simply redirected its steel inward, a clear admission that they couldn't compete on a level playing field. Canada's response wasn't strength. It was economic isolation. The federal government rewrote procurement guidelines, tightened protectionist protocols, and enforced discriminatory sourcing rules. These measures didn't just impact exports to the US, they restructured Canada's entire economy around protectionism and self-imposed limitations. Trump had forced Canada to choose between fair competition and economic isolation. Canada chose isolation, proving that American trade policy had been subsidizing Canadian industry for decades. Almost overnight, American companies that had been undercut by subsidized Canadian steel found new opportunities. Domestic production increased, long-term American contracts were signed, and industry analysts called it an American manufacturing renaissance. In Washington, the success was undeniable. Trump had expected Canada to either compete fairly or reveal their protectionist nature. He got exactly what he wanted, a clear demonstration that American industry, when protected from unfair competition, could outperform any rival. The 50% tariff, intended as a restoration of fair trade, had become a catalyst for American industrial renewal. American manufacturers were strengthened, workers were rehired, and Congress was unified behind a vision of economic nationalism that put American interests first. Trump had built a foundation for American prosperity and forced Canada to build their own walls. Walls that would ultimately contain their economic potential while America's expanded. What looked like Canadian retaliation was actually American strategic success. When Trump implemented his steel and aluminum tariffs in June 2025, he wasn't reacting to Canadian policies. He was forcing a fundamental realignment that would benefit American industry for decades to come. Canada's response revealed the wisdom of Trump's approach. Instead of competing on merit, Canada had been relying on preferential access to American markets. When that access was fairly regulated, Canada was forced to retreat into economic nationalism and protectionist policies that proved Trump's point about unfair trade relationships. Long before any tariff headlines, American policymakers had been quietly crafting something more enduring. A new industrial doctrine rooted in American self-sufficiency, energy independence, and national resilience. Canada saw this as confrontational, but it was actually America's declaration of economic independence. The question that Canadian officials failed to ask was crucial. Was America really fighting Canada, or simply moving forward without dependence on foreign suppliers? In early 2025, well before the tariff implementation, Washington had launched comprehensive American steel revitalization programs, sweeping efforts to modernize and strengthen the domestic steel industry. This wasn't a bailout. It was an investment in America's industrial future. The strategy prioritized advanced production methods, expanded steel capacity for national defense, and supply chain security for America's energy independence. It wasn't just about keeping American furnaces running. It was about ensuring that America would never again depend on foreign markets to power its critical industries. The approach went deeper than simple protectionism. America implemented strategic controls on steel imports that protected domestic producers from subsidized dumping while maintaining access to fairly traded materials. This wasn't traditional protectionism. It was about creating a market based on competition and innovation, not subsidies and unfair advantages. The effects were immediate and positive. American steel producers no longer had to compete against subsidized imports. They could invest in modernization, adopt cutting-edge technologies, and plan long-term growth with confidence. While Canada complained, Trump's administration didn't blink, because under WTO rules, national security considerations and fair trade enforcement are not only legal, but encouraged. American infrastructure projects from highways to military vessels were redesigned with clear criteria favoring domestic production and fair trade practices. Contractors bidding on federal projects now competed on quality and efficiency rather than relying on foreign subsidies. Overnight, the domestic market became more competitive and more aligned with America's strategic goals. This meant price stability, stronger local supply chains, and a steel sector that could meet both domestic needs and export opportunities on fair terms. So while Canadian officials accused America of hidden protectionism, the reality was far more straightforward. There were no unfair trade practices, no market manipulation, no discriminatory policies, just a methodical restoration of American industrial capacity under rules that prioritized American workers and fair competition. This wasn't a short-term trade dispute designed to hurt foreign economies. It was a structural shift designed to free America from dependence on foreign suppliers and the chaos of unfair global trade practices. America wasn't just responding to Canadian policies. It was quietly rewriting the rules to ensure American prosperity and choosing to prioritize American workers and industry. Trump's tariff strategy succeeded because it wasn't just about trade, it was about positioning America as the leader in next-generation steel production. While Canada retreated into economic isolation, American steel producers embraced innovation and efficiency that would dominate global markets. America's industrial transformation centered on a bold technological commitment. American steel plants were already transitioning to advanced electric arc furnaces, technology that uses electricity to create superior steel while dramatically reducing environmental impact. Unlike traditional methods that rely on costly imports, EAFs use American electricity to process recycled materials, creating a completely domestic supply chain. But EAFs were just the beginning. American producers paired them with direct reduced iron technology powered by abundant American natural gas and emerging hydrogen capabilities. This combination represents the most advanced steelmaking technology available, producing superior products with minimal environmental impact. America's unique advantage became clear: its energy infrastructure. While other countries struggled with expensive energy imports, America's steel-producing states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana, had access to abundant, affordable energy from natural gas, nuclear, and renewable sources. These states invested heavily in grid infrastructure, ensuring that clean, cheap energy flowed directly to steelmaking operations. This wasn't just good policy, it was superior economics. American steelmakers could meet the world's most demanding environmental standards while maintaining cost competitiveness. International buyers, from European manufacturers to Asian construction firms, recognized that American steel offered both quality and environmental credentials that helped them meet their own standards. The question that foreign steel industries were forced to ask became clear. If America could offer cleaner, higher quality steel with reliable supply chains, why would global buyers accept inferior alternatives? This transformation represented more than environmental progress. It was America's strategic positioning to dominate the materials markets of the future. Trump's policies ensured that America wouldn't wait for other countries to catch up with American innovation and efficiency. While foreign suppliers were forced to revise their export strategies, America had already taken decisive steps to create the world's most advanced steel recycling infrastructure. Trump's policies didn't just protect American steel production, they revolutionized it. In mid-2025, as global steel markets experienced volatility, American steel producers demonstrated remarkable stability and growth. Instead of relying on volatile international markets, America developed a different approach, aggressively expanding domestic recycled steel capacity that created a completely self-sufficient supply chain. The centerpiece of this transformation was strategic tax incentives offered to manufacturers using American scrap steel as a primary input. For American producers, these incentives represented significant competitive advantages that allowed them to modernize operations while maintaining cost leadership. The benefits were economic, environmental, and strategic. Recycled steel processing through American electric arc furnaces powered by domestic energy created a closed-loop supply chain that was immune to foreign disruption. As international buyers began demanding reliable, high-quality materials, American firms realized they had developed capabilities that foreign producers couldn't match. American policymakers didn't act in isolation. State governments partnered with federal programs to develop regional recycling networks. Scrap collection programs expanded, processing capabilities modernized, and even local municipalities were incentivized to support industrial recycling programs. In Pennsylvania and Ohio, these systems connected directly to steelmakers that were already achieving world-leading efficiency standards. The result was unprecedented: price stability, environmental leadership, and complete supply chain independence. Meanwhile, foreign policymakers were trapped in reactive mode, pointing fingers at American success, while their own construction firms reported project delays and budget problems. American construction companies, by contrast, reported stable costs, reliable supply, and improved project timelines. The structural solution that America implemented, circular supply chains anchored in advanced recycling, became the global standard that other countries struggled to replicate. Trump's vision was vindicated. Resilience isn't built through import dependence. It's built through American innovation and self-sufficiency. While foreign governments scrambled to manage domestic backlash, America moved with strategic precision, redefining not just domestic steel production, but global trade leadership. Trump's policies transformed America from a steel importer into the world's preferred supplier of premium steel products. At the heart of this strategy was America's technological advantage in clean steel production. American steel earned global recognition for environmental excellence, meeting the most demanding international standards while maintaining competitive pricing. This combination gave American producers access to premium markets worldwide. Trump's trade policies made it clear that American steel represented more than just a commodity. It was a symbol of technological leadership and reliability. American exports were strategically directed to industries that valued quality and dependability: aerospace manufacturing, defense applications, infrastructure projects, and advanced manufacturing systems. International buyers who chose American steel weren't just purchasing materials, they were accessing American engineering expertise, supply chain reliability, and technological innovation. Companies that demonstrated commitment to long-term partnerships with American suppliers received priority access and technical support. Within America, this export success reshaped domestic steel production. Companies that invested in advanced technologies and environmental leadership weren't just praised, they were rewarded with access to global markets and support for continued innovation and expansion. This represented more than a steel strategy, it was American technological diplomacy, woven into trade policy and industrial leadership. The transformation raised an important question for foreign competitors. If America was exporting technological excellence along with its steel, what could other countries offer that matched American quality and innovation? Trump built American strength while foreign governments built barriers to American success. In that choice, the balance of North American trade shifted decisively in America's favor, creating lasting benefits for American workers and industry. What began as a tariff policy had triggered something far more significant: the restoration of American industrial leadership and the establishment of fair trade relationships based on competition rather than subsidies. Washington sought prosperity through strength, while foreign governments chose isolation through protectionism. While other countries retreated into economic nationalism, America leaned into technological innovation, energy independence, and supply chain leadership. When global markets demanded higher standards, America was ready with superior products backed by advanced technology and reliable supply chains. The most significant outcome was America's strategic independence. America no longer needed to compromise its interests to maintain trade relationships. It simply needed to continue leading through innovation, and economic gravity would continue working in America's favor. The question that emerged was transformative. This wasn't just a trade dispute. It was a realignment that established who would shape the industries of tomorrow. America chose to lead that transformation, rather than defend outdated relationships. Thanks for watching. And if this resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe.